Erupted in the Missouri town after a grand jury declined to indict a white police officer for fatally shooting an unarmed black teenager. Businesses were looted, police cars burned, a dozen buildings went up in flames.
60s, there was smoke, there was fires, there were gunshots in the air. A couple police cars were burned down, several businesses were broken into, and there was generally a sense of chaos on the street. There have been these nightly protests for more than 3 months, but last night was unlike any previous night here in Ferguson. There was, significant damage done all across the city, including, as you mentioned, about a dozen buildings that were burned all the way to the ground.
Toulouse, President Obama came out about 2 hours after the indictment to speak to the country. Did his comments, were they heard by the people on the street? Did you have any sense of whether they did anything to mollify the situation?
Well, honestly, the situation on the ground had already changed by the time the president began speaking. As soon as the announcement the decision was announced by the prosecutor, people had taken to the streets. Some of the looting had already begun. Some businesses had already been attacked, and I don't think people were listening to the president at that point.
Well, nicely described, and as you say, they were not listening to the president. They were looking at the immediacy there. What is the catalyst to see a continuance of this violence and protest into tonight and into the coming weekend?
Well, people have been waiting for this decision for several months, and what we saw was kind of an outspilling of emotion that has been pent up. So I get the sense that there will be continued demonstrations. People will continue to take to the streets, and there will actually be now more National Guardsmen being brought out. So we have a potential for more significant clashes between the police and the activists.
What does it look like right now?
Well, there are still businesses that are the fires are trying to be put out, and there are still fires at several businesses. A lot of people have cleared the streets, but there are already calls for a 7 a.m. Demonstrations here at the courthouse in Clayton, Missouri, where the grand jury met. So it looks like people are gearing up to come out to the streets once again.
What do you think we're going to see today in terms of looting? Now we're going to be in the light of day, where people could be arrested.
More National Guardsmen to show up. We're likely to see more of a heavy police presence guarding some of these businesses in the light of day. But no one knows what's going to happen when night falls. It's pretty cold, but that did not stop people from coming out last night, and it's likely that people will continue to come out until everything fizzles down.
Toulouse, what happens now to Darren Wilson? Obviously, he is very unlikely to walk the streets of Ferguson ever again. We've heard he's likely to resign from the force. We have heard he had time to get married in the last...
Hold your ground!
If you're in the street, you need to get out of the street immediately or you will be subject to arrest.
It's likely that he will not return to the force. We also have to remember that he's still kind of the subject of an ongoing federal investigation, as well as the police department could be hit with a civil lawsuit over how things played out back in August. So we're unlikely to see him return to. He likely will be maybe doing interviews, but we don't plan to see him return as a police officer.
But what about his personal safety?
Well, for the most part, he has not been very visible in Ferguson, so we probably expect him to continue to remain in hiding. He may do an interview on television, but I don't expect to see him out and about in the community. It's likely that he will relocate and